Most of us want to be successful, however we define that. To be happy, to be fulfilled, to realise our potential and live a worthwhile life. And yet, more and more health and scientific findings are showing the way we're currently living our lives just isn't working. Stress, obesity, depression, anxiety are all on the increase. Happiness declines in our 20s before returning again, wait for it, in our 50s. That's most of our productive lives. Let's talk about work for a moment. The average person works 80,000 hours in a lifetime, and yet globally only 13% of people are engaged at work. So there's a long period of struggle for many people in the middle. It's fascinated me for years how come some people thrive and others only just survive, even given the same circumstances. Over the last 2 decades, I've worked with over 20,000 people, and I've discovered 3 keys to unlocking human potential. I'd like to share those today. But first, a sweet story that really illustrates what it is that's hidden but drives the quality of our lives. Once there were 5-year-old twin boys, one a pessimist, the other an optimist. Wondering how boys could be so similar and yet so different, their parents took them to a psychologist. The psychologist took the pessimist to a room piled high with new toys. The boy sat down and cried. The psychologist said, "Don't you want to play with the toys?" The boy said, "Yes, but I'd only break them." Next, the psychologist took the optimist to a room piled high with horse poo. The boy squealed with delight, clambered on top and started throwing the poo around. The psychologist said, "What are you doing?" The boy said, "With all this poo, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere." Identical twins, and yet so completely different. What was the core difference between them? They had different stories. The first thing we need to do to realize our potential in life is to master the stories we tell ourselves. And there's 3 different kinds of stories. Our life story, in the moment stories, and stories about other people. We all have a life story. Neuroscientists say that the brain acquiring the power to tell a story is the birth of consciousness. Psychologists say we start doing this around the age of 2, and it's our attempt to make meaning out of our lives. Now, it's common to think that who we are today is a function of our past, our parenting, upbringing, education, and experiences. But this way of thinking can lead to a belief that our talents, abilities, and intelligence are all fixed. And people with a fixed mindset don't tend to thrive. They can be paralyzed by a fear of failing that stops them trying at all. So to get out of this fixed mindset, we need to understand more about our life story. How is it formed, and how might we rewrite some unhelpful parts of it? Now, most of your life story is probably fabulous. It's got you here today, but parts of it may be unhelpful. So how is it formed? Well, it's not what happens as we grow that shapes us. It's what we make those things mean. So it's not the events that happen, it's the meaning we add. The same event interpreted differently can lead to a fundamentally different life story. And do you know how much our life story affects us? It shapes who we are, what we do, and the results we achieve. So how might we rewrite unhelpful parts of it? Well, it takes separating out what happened from what we made it mean. Finding your life story can feel a little bit like trying to catch your own shadow. In my experience, it's easiest to catch that critical voice we all have from time to time. You know the voice I mean? You're not good enough. Don't try that. You might fail. You're not smart enough. And trace that voice back to what's the earliest time you remember thinking that. And you may find the event, and you'll be able to separate out the meaning. Even if you can't find the event, you can start to question the validity of that voice, because that's invented. What prompted me to look at my own life story was finding myself at 25 with a lot of the trappings of success. I had a job as a lawyer in a prestigious law firm, honours degree on the wall, view of the harbour. How come I had this creeping sense this isn't it? And I didn't like the future I saw either. I looked at the partners around me in the law firm, and a lot of them were unhealthy, overweight, unhappy, overworked, and didn't spend much time with their families. So I didn't like the future I saw. I need to understand what got me here, and if this wasn't going to be it, what the heck was going to be, because I'd invested a huge amount getting that far. So I started looking. I did a lot of learning, a lot of personal development, and what I uncovered was this terrible fear of not being good enough. Where did that start from? Well, for me, when I was 10, my parents divorced. It's a common story. And at that point, my sense of belonging shattered. I felt deeply ashamed. I felt like I was different than other children. I made that happening mean there was something wrong with me. I wasn't good enough. The world became about survival, proving, striving, debating, competing. Can you see the train tracks to becoming a lawyer yet? Discovering that my parents' divorce didn't mean anything about me was unbelievably liberating. Erica Jong said, "Take your own life into your own hands and a terrible thing happens. No one to blame." If our past is out of our future, what's possible? Anything. So that's the first kind of story we need to master, our life story. The second kind of story is the in-the-moment stories. As we go through life, every moment we're making things mean things. And a lot of these meanings help us navigate the world. And they're helpful. They leave us free and empowered to act. But some of these are not helpful. And we need to be more alert to these, catch them, and find a meaning that leaves us free. Now, I talk about this stuff for a living, and I know these can be tricky to find in the heat of a moment. Remember once leading an event, 250 people in the room, evening seminar about living life passionately. And it was going really well. And then I started noticing this one guy who was sitting like this. I started fixating on him. Even when I said turn to your partner, he would go like this. I started thinking, oh, what's the matter with him? He looks really disinterested. Is he bored? What does that mean about me? Am I boring? Then I noticed someone else check their watch. I'm now gone. I'm in my head. Oh no, I'm boring. Come on, do something, woman. So I already talk fast. Now I'm talking like a rabbit on speed, and I start waving my arms and legs around, and it's awful. I'm gone. I'm not present anymore. So thank goodness there's a break. I've got two voices in my head about what to do about this man. One voice says, why don't you go and talk to him? The other voice loudly says, what are you kidding? Talk to him? Heck no. Stay away from him. This voice won. So I went up to him while my heart was pounding, my palms were sweating, and I said, hi, how are you finding this evening? He said, this stuff's incredible. I've discovered tonight that my wife just wants me to listen to her, and I think this will save our marriage. I said, that's amazing. I was thinking you were bored because you're holding yourself like this. He said, oh no, look. And he opened his arms to reveal coffee that had spilt down his front. How many times a day do we do this? We take someone's eyebrow, someone's glance, someone's snigger to mean, oh, there's something wrong with me. I should not participate now. And how many times do we even check out if the meaning we're adding is real? I'd say hardly ever. So the second thing we need to do is master the in-the-moment stories. Notice when we're adding meaning, and is it helpful? To get into the third kind of story, I'd like you to do me a favour. I'd like you to bring to mind the best moments of your life. It might be the birth of a child, falling in love, laughter with friends. For most of us, they involve other people. We all crave connection. It's one of the keys to well-being and happiness in life. So what is it that gets in the way of us experiencing connection? It's our stories about other people. How quickly when we meet someone new do we start forming a story about them? Within 1/20th of a second, spindle cells in our brain fire with information about how we feel about someone else. And these initial stories can last a lifetime. Now, some of them may be accurate and helpful, but I'm curious about the times that they're not, and that these stories prevent us getting into relationship with people. I remember once being asked to run a team exercise, and before the exercise, the manager briefed me. She said, look, We've got a concern about one team member. We're not sure she's got a future in the team. She's just not gelling. People find her quite cold and aloof. She doesn't join in social activities. I said, okay. As part of the team exercise, I had people do a personal storytelling exercise. It involved thinking about their life in 7-year stages and capturing each stage in an image or a symbol. Each person took a turn to tell their story. When it came to the woman's turn, she stood and pointed to the preceding 7 years before she joined the team. And there were 2 small crosses. She said, "These represent my 2 children who were killed in an accident." I'm blown away by her courage and her loss. So we don't know other people's stories. At that time, before that she told that story, her team had no idea. The moment she was generous and shared that, their judgment dissolved and compassion came flowing through. And maybe that's the access to more compassion in our lives, is being curious about other people's stories. So that's the first piece of the puzzle, and it's really the most fundamental piece. If we can master our stories, the rest of it flows. So our stories lead into the next piece, which is all about our mood. Now, we all know a positive mood helps performance. It also helps with learning and creativity. So where does our mood come from? Well, whatever story we're telling brings a mood with it. So think about work. If you're thinking about a project and your story is, "Oh, this is really interesting and important," then you're going to be inspired, engaged, and determined. That'll help your performance. If your story about a project is, "This is too hard, it won't work," then that level of resignation will infect your performance. So our mood affects our performance, and yet it's hidden from most of us. We don't realise the impact of our mood. But wait, there's more. Your mood also affects others, or should I say infects others. You are actually a mood virus. You are contagious. One of the most stunning findings of behavioural neuroscience is that our brains have mirror neurons. They act like a neural Wi-Fi system, helping us navigate the social world. We pick up other people's emotions and we reproduce them. So our mood is contagious. Well, then the question is, okay, well, what's my mood been? I want you to imagine you've had a mood meter on your hip. You know, like pedometers measure steps. You've had a mood meter on your hip. And it's been measuring your mood moment by moment as you go through life for the last 6 months. And it spits out a tape. And the tape goes from 0, "I'm afraid you don't have a pulse at this moment," through to 10, "You're full of energy and enthusiasm and inspiration." What does your tape look like? And how have you been infecting others? The most common pattern is this. So when you're down, you're bringing others down, and when you're up, you're bringing others up. Is it possible to be inspired every moment in life, every day? I believe it is. How? Choose your story, choose your mood. When we focus on things we can do something about, we are naturally inspired. So that's the second piece. Is that enough? Okay, good, I've got a good story, I'm in a good mood, life will come to me with results, yes? No. Turns out there's a third piece. We need to take action. Now, I've heard every excuse imaginable for not acting. I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the resource, I've got the wrong manager, I've got the wrong staff, I'm just not ready. So what does action take fundamentally? It takes courage. And we need to understand something about the true nature of courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the presence of fear and action. People seem to be waiting to wake up more confident, like it's going to be injected overnight. You actually find confidence out there while acting. I heard a quote in my 20s which really impacted me. It's by Theodore Roosevelt. I'll shorten it here today. It is not the critic who counts. It is the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again. His place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. So the final choice is this: be a player in the arena or a spectator in the stands. When we're a spectator in the stands, why do we do that? It's out of fear. Fear of what? Fear of failure, fear of trying, fear of change, fear of being judged and criticized. We think it's safer in the stands, but it's not, because we're still judged and criticized. And who's the biggest critic of all? Ourselves. The reality in the arena is this: we fail sometimes, and we need to transform our relationship to failure. We tend to think, if I fail at this, I am a failure. But that's all wrong. James Joyce said, a man's failures are the portals to his greatness. I think it applies to women as well. So the final choice, be a player in the arena or a spectator in the stands. When we're a spectator, we live a someday life. Someday when I'm something enough, then I'll play. When I'm what? When I'm old enough, when I'm educated enough, when I'm attractive enough, thin enough, then I'll play. So for me, the answer to the question, if not this, then what, was certainly not a straight line. It was much more of a squiggle. It involved leaving law, trying 2 different fields of work before I found my home. I was afraid of losing what I had, but in letting go, that was the true answer for me. Now, this level of transformation is available at every level. We can do it in our families, in our relationships, in our organizations and communities. Just imagine if children had access to this way of thinking, if they realized the difference between events and meanings, if they realized their intelligence wasn't fixed, that through shifting their mood they could move the world, that courage isn't the absence of fear, that through perseverance they could succeed. So pulling it together, the hidden source of success, our stories and our mood, but we need to add the final ingredient, taking action. Thank you.